Hey, what's up guys? It's Oakley and we're going to be doing a commentary. This one is going to be more geared towards tactics. So I'm going to be teaching you how to recreate Hannibal's stunning victory at Cannae. So what I'm going to be using here is a build that can be used for various factions. And so you can see me here demonstrating it using Athens. So the build basically requires you to have 4 to 6 spearmen, preferably towards the 6. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use these spears to make an outer wall. And not necessarily the way spears are usually made into a single frontal wall. What you're going to use is you're going to have your spears form a perimeter. And what you're going to put on the inside is going to be your juicy center. And so the purpose of this, as I said, is to mirror Hannibal's victory at Cannae. So what Hannibal did was he actually formed up his main line in the center. And he tempted the Romans to come in the center, and then what he had was the flanks were heavy with Libyan infantry piled in deep, and so as the Romans pushed in the center caved in, and the flanks, so the people on the side here that I'm forming in deep rows, were able to turn in and envelop the Romans. So that's kind of what I'm showing you here. What I would recommend you do is put your pikes on the sides, and then maybe one in the center, so you can see the build from on top, pikes on the outside, and then maybe one of a light spear unit in the front just to ward off a cavalry engagement from the front. But the main idea for how this works is you're guarding your sides from cavalry. The way people use cavalry is to try and get around your sides or your flanks. So you're going to stop any of those shenanigans. So you're basically going to turn your pikes to the side and prevent that from happening. Once the infantry from the enemy tries to pull in your center, what you do is you go ahead and you form up like this. And actually this build is going to require that you use a decent amount of these skirmishers. Your skirmishers are going to pull back, and then once the enemy goes into this concave position, you're going to attack with your skirmishers from all sides, making sure to attack diagonally, as I've showed in previous videos, to make sure to hit the unprotected sides of your enemy, and then you swing your cav to assist either sides. But that's basically what Hannibal ended up doing. He pulled the Romans into the center, the sides were able to collapse on the Romans, and then he used his cavalry to go around the sides and flank. So this is going to be one of the battles where I use this against an opponent. He's going to be playing as Egypt, so I'm going to show you how this works. Now when Hannibal was doing this, he mostly did it in a semi-passive stance. Yes, his army did advance, but mostly it was the Romans who were pushing forward. Now in this battle, I'm going to be showing how you can use it a bit more aggressively. So you can see my opponent here in a typical build. He has skirmishers up front, line of spears in the center, and then cavalry on the sides. So what's good about my formation is you see how my opponent has those cavalry units. I'm going to anchor my spears on that side, and then I'm going to form this bow here, and where I put those lines, that's where I'm going to fire with my skirmishers, and that's my intention. So seeing as my opponent has these cavalry, he's going to do the sensible thing, which is to send them around the flanks. Now the important thing about this build is you already have your spears on the flanks. That means those cavalry are going to be completely ineffective attacking your flanks. It means that those cavalry are useless. So what your opponent is left to do with this cavalry is either charge through the center. He's willing to do that, but you can just fall back to your infantry and pelt them with skirmishers if they get too close. So what your opponent will probably do is try and get them all the way around your back, but that's why I have my general and my cavalry back here. So general has spears, cavalry can fend off his cavalry, so it kind of protects your infantry core, and it allows you to deal with what's in the center. So your spears on the outside will protect against cavalry, and then your center can do a dance against his troops. So what I'm going to do here is start the engagement. So I'm going to move up my skirmishers and my body here, and I'm going to envelop his center. And take a look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to move up aggressively. So what you can also do is with your units on the sides, so the spearmen, not only do they defend against cavalry, but they actually make a very good forceful move up through the flanks of the enemy infantry. If the cavalry of your opponent do not engage, then you just turn your infantry that are charging up the sides and attack the flanks of the opponent, and you'll see just how that works. So anyways, I'm going to be charging forward. As I said, Hannibal would have been a bit more passive in employing this strategy, allowing the Romans to be drawn into his center. Here I'm going to be charging forward. The reason I'm doing this is because my opponent has archers, and all of a sudden I'm going to charge forward, not allow them to get too many volleys off. So I'm going to lead off with my infantry here and just try and chase off his archers. So you can see the plan is going as intended. My center is moving forward to engage, and I'm pushing up the sides with my spears. The enemy cavalry really doesn't have anywhere to engage, so he's going to be holding off. Now make sure you don't become overzealous. Remember that the main point of this is to draw back your center. You don't want them to clash with your opponent, especially here where you can see that, for example, if I were to charge right into his spears, I would definitely lose. So the point is to draw him in, and take a look at this. My flanking guys are going to get right around his sides, and his cavalry can't really do anything about that because I have extra spears to protect my pikes from the flank. I'm going to go ahead and form phalanx position and then just start pushing in on his sides. You can see how my center has stopped moving, and all of a sudden now I have the flank on his main line, and now I'm going to start pushing in on those guys, always keeping cavalry and spearmen to support the backs of my phalanxes on the sides. Next I'm going to move in with my center, and they're going to be told to pick off, his guys shooting at the diagonal. So my opponent is going to reform to try and face me. That's exactly what you want to do. When he does that, tell your skirmishers to pick off those guys who presented their sides. That'll have two effects. One, you'll be able to take them out very effectively because their sides are exposed, and two, it'll whittle down his sides that are trying to resist you and allow you to break the sides. So you can see here the diagonal fire is allowing me to whittle away the centers, and now I'm able to react against his cavalry who were attacking. Because my spears were on the flanks and the rear as opposed to the front, I can get rid of any of his cavalry attacks right here. I intercept them, and we're going to keep plowing through the center. So my opponent is forced to keep his spears facing my front, because if he were to turn, I would just charge through the center. So I'm kind of keeping his gaze fixed on me, while at the same time basically destroying his sides and picking him apart. So my opponent is going to do the next thing that obviously comes to his mind, which is just going to be to try and charge. And so you'll see what happens. Anyways, if you have any remaining troops here, go ahead and send them around the flanks, and you can just see I'm devastating his men. So he's going to send his phalanx through the center because he doesn't want to withstand the onslaught that's coming. As that happens, you can just go ahead and pull back, and then your opponent is left with nothing. He can push through the center if he wants, but just go ahead and retreat and make sure you clean up the rest of the forces. So you can see here, all the while as they're retreating, make sure to use your skirmishers to whittle down his men, even charge through the flanks. Over here I'm wrapping up his cavalry, and you can see how this battle went pretty well. This was actually a battle, the first time that I invented this strategy in Rome 2. This is the first battle where I tried it out and it worked splendidly, so I decided to make this video explaining my thinking behind it, and I've done a couple more battles using these tactics and they've worked. It's not foolproof. It definitely requires some micromanagement and a bit of a change of tactics and pacing when you're fighting against various opponents, and taking into account the terrain, but this is definitely a very viable strategy, so I'll try and show that to you in action a bit more. Also take a look at this. If you use a lot of these skirmishers, you can save some of them, so that's why I had 2 rows of skirmishers, 3 in the front, 2 in the back. The 2 in the back are supposed to be saved for engagements like this later in the battle where his forces are pinned, and I can just massacre them. So you can see just how many kills those guys are getting against his engaged troops, because once you engage those guys from the sides, you just absolutely wreck them. And take a look at my roster at the bottom. Everyone is basically green health, so that's going to be the decisive victory using Athens, which is supposed to be a relatively underpowered faction. So I hope you guys enjoy this, the historical context of it, and also that this tactic is something you can use and employ. Let's go ahead and look at the stats. So I killed 1,022 and he killed 340, and you can see my skirmishers got a lot of kills, and my pikes who came around the sides did pretty well. So anyways, I will see you guys next time, and yeah, let me know if you enjoyed this, if you think I should try and bring more tactics to life like the triplex axes and stuff like that. I'm just happy to share it with you guys. So anyways, I will see you next time.